Hello, friends, and welcome to another new episode of the Quest for Excellence series brought to you by Intellectus Consulting. As you all know, the Quest for Excellence series is an endeavor by our organization to raise the standards of pharmaceutical marketing excellence in the industry. Towards this endeavor, we interview senior business leaders, P&L heads, chief marketing officers, vice presidents, and cluster heads of sales and marketing of various pharmaceutical companies who have had a very successful career in not only building brands, but also businesses. We attempt to learn from them as to what are the key facets which help them excel in their career and set the standards or benchmarks of excellence in their career. The fundamental domains of excellence that we focus on in our series are essentially around leadership excellence, marketing excellence, strategy excellence, brand building excellence, and commercial excellence. My guest for today is a solid industry veteran with over 3 decades of pharmaceutical experience, industry experience, both in sales, marketing, and as the head of the business. He started off his career in sales with one of the most respected marketing companies in the industry called HMR or Hex Marion Russell way back in the 90s, and spent a considerable 10 years in sales roles across the country. Armed with that sales experience, he then got into commercial excellence, driving sales force excellence, analytics, brand building support, and like. After a very successful stint in commercial excellence, he opted for a P&L role as a next part of his journey in understanding the dynamics of managing business both from a marketing and sales perspective. Friends, I'm extremely happy to introduce to you Mr. Anjan Ghosh, who is the Senior President for Commercial Excellence and Strategy for Bharat Serums and Vaccines Limited. I've had the privilege of knowing Anjan for over 20 years now. Anjan is one of the finest sales and marketing and business head professionals in the industry and has had a tremendous track record of building brands of huge repute, especially in Aventis, the erstwhile Aventis, in the early 2000s, when he was responsible for building brands like Cardace, Lantus, and Amaryl, and thereafter, as the director for business support in MSD, was a part of the launch team that delivered a blockbuster, classic textbook launch success for Januvia and Janumet. It would be very worthwhile to say that the kind of work that Anjan did over the years has been exemplary. So let's get right down to interviewing Anjan and hearing from him about his success story. Hi, Anjan.
Hey, hi, Shailesh. How are you doing?
Good morning, and how are you?
Hey, good morning.
Can you see
I'm
me?
doing good. Yeah, tell me.
How are things with you, Anjan?
Yeah, things are good, man.
Right. So before you came on air, I was doing a recording of about a couple of minutes, giving an introduction about you, which obviously the background for our viewers, so that they get a preamble as to the kind of tremendous experience and background that you come from, And
thank you so much for that.
So, Anjan, thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this initiative that we have embarked upon from July. And as I had outlined in my mail to you that the Quest for Excellence series is an endeavor that is aimed at raising the standards of marketing excellence in the industry. And you're aware that right since the last 4 years, me and my organization have been trying to attempt every single possible manner in which we can contribute to the growth and development of marketing colleagues, especially those in brand management, marketing, and commercial function. And our interventions have been essentially around, workshops, personalized coaching programs, webinars, blogs, and industry-sponsored forums where we take active positions in driving the entire concept of marketing excellence. The another endeavor which we thought and we believe would help raise the understanding of this function and towards excellence is interviewing business leaders of outstanding track record and reputation who have kind of been there and done that. And you are definitely right up there in our dictionary of what we qualify as knowledgeable and successful leaders who have seen functions across the gamut or the spectrum, like sales, marketing, commercial excellence, Salesforce excellence. And so today what we hope to achieve is to get deep insights from you, your understandings and learnings over the last 3 decades in this industry, so that upcoming marketeers can benefit as well. So that's the whole thing, Anjan.
Yeah, thank you for labeling me as a dinosaur. That's okay with me.
No, not at all. That was never. No.
Yeah, but yeah, thank you. Thank you for all those kind words. And in fact, I don't know that whether they really mean that much. It's been a journey, and there was no destination. So you keep on moving from one to another. And as you said rightly, that there is a quest. And that once that comes to an end and a halt, everything comes to a stop, right? So continuously, when you start searching about that truth, which drives and in our parlance, a customer or a consumer
Right.
towards a product, what is driving that form?
Right.
So, and then they are getting finer and finer.
Right.
And that quest stops.
Right.
Then the marketing stops. The growth of an individual stops.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely, Anjan. Absolutely. Very well said. And I think that's why we have coined it as the quest, because that's an eternal journey towards excellence. Learning never stops, and the journey towards excellence never stops. It's an ongoing. Yeah. Anjan, let me start straight off and dive into the pool by asking you, because when I met you, almost 2 decades ago, I remember you were, a very, very successful sales manager, and you spent almost a decade in sales, building phenomenal.
2 decades to be specific.
2 decades to be specific, but in the core function of sales, I think almost when I see your career as you grew from a rep in HMR, area manager, regional sales manager. I mean, you did some outstanding work in establishing the benchmark brands in Aventis, which is now today Sanofi, like Cardace and Amaryl and Lantus, etc. And I had the opportunity of closely working with you and seeing you in action. And then, if you look back today, I'm sure you would have had certain learnings on which you draw upon and you continue to utilize in your current role as well. What were those learnings in the sales function which you effectively kind of deployed in your growth roles, when you got into commercial leadership? Any of those takeaways which marketeers should definitely bear in mind when they aspire to grow to the next level?
So if I understand this correctly, that what was the learnings in the sales that the marketeers should imbibe and take away, right? So the essential part from the marketeer's view into the sales function, if I have to put it that way, is to say that is what I am communicating, is the strategy aligned, in the sense the market dynamics is rightfully captured in my marketing plan, that the customers, what they are saying, most of the marketeers have very limited or relatively limited exposure to the span of customer that's there for the sales force, right? So when we interact as a marketeer with the sales, they should understand that, look, there's a lot of truth which comes across and is being presented in form of anecdotes, in form of isolated uh, interactions, and in form of collective. So from that, if we are able, we as marketeer are able to synthesize what comes out, will give marketeers a much better insights into what are the customer types or segments, or how do they think about. So as a marketeer, pay attention to what the sales force is talking about. That's from the strategy design part of the story. The other part goes on to see that how implementable it is. Okay. Right? Implementation is the key. You bring out a strategy and you don't know the implementation challenges. And I can tell you about one live story about what had happened.
Please.
We were in Chennai. We were to a new campaign for Cardace got launched. And the detail aid that was handed over to us were something like 30 pages. The thick, hardbound detail aids that come. So that is impractical, right? So when the sales meeting started, we stood up and said, look, this doesn't work. And then you cannot have a detailing story which is 30 page wide.
Right.
And at a point in time, those kinds of stuff works. When we are launching a product and launching a concept, and I can still go back in 80s. And when we launched a product called Trental, the detail aid, I think I have still preserved that. It was like a leather bound thick booklet, had 4 sections in that. But then the story and messaging was simple, that you connect from the basics of the product, what it does, to the indication. It has a CVD indications, it had a peripheral vascular disease indication. So there were sections which could have been talked about. It was not one complete story.
Right.
So this would be my simple message, saying that understand what your customer needs are and make it simple.
Right. Right. Very often we are seeing, Anjan, and when you talk about brand marketing and brand planning as an exercise, which is a kind of a ritual for all companies as an annual exercise, there are certain gaps or what you call as shortcomings that brand managers are classically seen having, understanding around, say, insights or around positioning, segmentation, which is both qualitative and quantitative, and also around areas of life cycle management and thinking deep about the brands. You would have probably seen this or are continuing to see this when you were a part of, when you got into commercial excellence and supporting the marketing team, as well as now as a P&L head. My question to you is, if you think this exists, first of all, do you think these are chronic problems that we need to address? And if they exist, why do you think it is not effectively addressed enough? Or what do you think we should also be doing to address these? Because these are chronic, endemic, festering issues around, strategy thinking, around positioning, customer insights. What could be the reason, despite all the kind of support that we provide for the brand management teams?
If I have to put it across, if you group the individuals managing brands, right, they are from one end to the other. And the essential differentiation that happens is the passion that they have for marketing. It's true with anything that they do in life, anything that we do in life.
Right.
Once it becomes a template,
right,
and marketing becomes one of those day jobs, then we will get outputs, as we call it, a subliminal output.
Right.
There's no thoughts. The question that's always there is, how far can I see? And in our medical parlance, how far can I see that patient? Can I see that only within the doctor's chamber, only within the doctor's clinic? What is it or she doing outside that clinic? And therefore, the insights are driven from there. Insights are driven from how far I can integrate myself with that individual to whom I am trying to sell or do better or So it could be preventive, it could be curative, it could be regressive. You can have different kinds of therapies, but can I see that patient in their daily life and therefore try and see what is the problem that I'm wanting to solve? Disease is only a part of that story. It's a life that's encompasses that. So for a marketeer, it's very important that they become passionate. They ask 5 why questions, that what am I doing? Why am I doing it? And get to the bottom of that answer. Till that quest is quenched, you will keep getting a template and not get a real marketing output. Right. You talk about people come out from the college and then the universities and they would have read about segmentation and they'll do a random stuff. Are those variables appropriate? Right. Are those variables really meaningful? So these questions they have to ask to themselves. And I don't think externally giving stimulus really makes it at any level. Right. They're all adults, gone into adult learning principles. It's no more a college. It's no more didactic. So everybody has an opinion about themselves. Right. So till they really want to make it fine and they really want to drive it, right. It will be very difficult to get outputs which will be there.
I have always wanted to ask you this question, Anjan, is what prompted you, or obviously you would, having known you, you would not have not applied your thought, or you are not capable of taking just a random decision. What prompted you to get into an upcoming nascent function way back from sales into, what you call as then developing excellence function, which was around Salesforce excellence, analytics, market research? Was it because you wanted to shape your career as in that particular way, or what you found it that you were more interested in the processes that lead to sales outcomes rather than just generating the sales outcome? Was that your key driver of your career? Because many people want to get into excellence function as a choice, but they need to understand there are certain tenets or must-haves to get into that. So you made a choice. You excelled, especially in when you provided support for the business, not only in Sanofi, but also in MSD. And I'll come to that piece later. But what were the primary motivators or drivers for you to opt to see this function, as an evolving career choice?
Yeah. So looking back, it is easy.
Yeah.
To say, look, these were things. It's always easy to analyze the past. Yeah. What made me take those decisions at that point in time? Yes. Okay. Today I could say A, B, C, D. See, what had happened, it was not a merger scenario then, it was pre-merger. There was this function which was coming up called Salesforce Excellence. And there was a workshop which was held in Singapore for Aventis Group. And I was fortunate to be nominated to go there with a couple of other individuals. And what I got exposed to was understanding these customers, and they were very quantitative parameters of Salesforce Excellence, right? Segmenting them in A, B, C, how do you do that? There were a lot of number play around. And that was very appealing to me, considering that I come from a very physics background, right? So I had mathematics and physics nowhere connected to all the elementary systems and cardiovasculars. I left biology in class 8 when somebody told me a cockroach to be called as Periplaneta americana. And I said, that's enough for me. And I had quit anything connected to that and landed up into a pharmaceutical sales job. Okay, that's good enough. But then this opportunity came through, and that function was to grow later. So it happened. At Singapore, came back, nothing moved in the company. One small group got created. It was going on. And then after about 2 years, when the merger happened, 2.5 years, there was this position opening up called commercial excellence. And I recall that was very interesting, right? What I had seen in Singapore, I tried doing it in my sales in my own capacity as regional manager, but there was no impact at the organizational level. So when this position opened up, I was the one I raised the hands, and as my individual traits are, if there is a change, if there is a challenge, if there is something exciting, I will jump into it with both feet. And that's what happened. So I was at that point in time, RSM managing Lantus, North and West, big team, upcoming product, doing fairly okay, I guess. But then this was there for taking, and there was nobody who was interested. And then obviously my mentors were heading this. Dr. Bhattacharya was supposed to be the head of commercial excellence. Sushil was there. I said, okay, there is a safety net around working with them as well.
Right.
So why not? And then it all started. Obviously, Excel sheets always had me orgasmic. So get into it. Why not? Large 36,000 rows. That was the limit of Excel at that point in time. And then what happened was very interesting. It was a position based in head office. I said you can impact a larger population, larger number of people, and a great deal of learning for me as well, right? You get into from sales into a head office, a staff function. You try and understand what goes inside these air-conditioned buildings from 48 to 24, as people say, right? So from 48 degrees out there in the marketplace to 24 degrees in the AC chambers, and it's not a bad thing to happen.
Not a bad thing.
I moved in and then found that's an exciting place. There's enough and more that one can really contribute, impact, while learn at the same pace. So that's how I moved into this function. And I thought I did fairly okay there.
Right. And it became so much of a passion that you chose to build your career around that function for a considerable amount of time, probably almost for a decade in this role, which has been really driving and making an impact on the business, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. About a decade and plus.
Decade and so if I have to take out some nuggets of what you're saying is, one is the love for the unknown, right? You want to jump into something which is a challenge. You see an opportunity to grow yourself, grow your learning. You would obviously want to opt for it. That's one. Second, given your quant background of maths and physics and the number crunching and the excelling which is such an important piece of brand management and marketing function. I mean, I can tell you, is something, again, many people are not very comfortable with, but that's really the life. When you talk about excellence and making impact and outcomes, driving quantitative decision-driven outcomes is very, very important. So I think these two things led you to opt for that function or that role, right? And I think you did extremely well. Anything else?
I believe that's the key, right? The key. Business is all about numbers.
Numbers at the end of the day. Either you deliver the numbers or you impact the numbers.
Marketing is a way to do that, get that numbers.
Right.
If I don't understand numbers, I'm not comfortable with numbers and understand that. And right. I have seen many marketeers are not at all comfortable, getting into the numbers zone of the business.
Yes.
The P&L piece, what impacts COGS and what impacts pricing and what impacts discounts, what impacts NSP, so how are they interlinked? When I talk about a promotion, when I talk about a detailing position, what is the impact of that on my P&L?
Yes. No,
it's
I think, I think you preempted a couple of questions, because I was going to get into that at a later point, that one of the areas of gaps which we see when I coach my client brand teams across 4 or 5 organizations that I work with, the quantitative understanding of the business is deliberately left underdeveloped because people don't like to get into it. That's one thing I've seen, but that's all. Life is about numbers. So it's not just sales numbers, but as you rightly said, now you can't do segmentation without numbers, You need data, getting deep diving into the data, doing the cuts of segmentation, developing the various, deciles and what. These are stuff that people are not very comfortable, but that's where the God lies in those details, right? Where you can cull out.
Yeah, absolutely. And even understanding the methodology, how do I do it?
Correct.
If I have to do a market research, what methods should I deploy there? Do I understand correlation? Do I understand those factors? Right? There is a mathematical equation which sits behind that.
Yes.
I am not even saying to get into that. Right? But essentially, if I don't understand that there are numbers which ultimately goes on to make these segments, and then the the validity of that segment, the attractiveness of those segments.
Correct.
What is my business implication if only I address that piece? And therefore, if I look at marketeers, they don't make choices. They want to do everything. Thoda sa CME, thoda sa gifting, a little bit of clinical research, a little bit of doing a study development. They want to do everything without understanding why am I doing that? Where is my leverage points?
Right. Exactly.
So that is very critical.
That is very critical. Absolutely. Absolutely. And in fact, that is what strategic marketing is all about, right? Defining the choices, where to play and how to play, right? Because if you're not clear about these two pieces of your business or your brand, then actually you are wanting to do everything. And it's like playing the game of darts.
And I'm driven by competition rather than me driving anything. Because I see 5 competitors doing 5 different things.
Right.
And I don't know what is working, what is not, and I want to do everything for my brand.
Right.
I want to give discounts. I want to get the best of the products. I want to have a fancy packaging. I want to do tens of CMEs. I don't know what I'm doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so you're not able to make the choices, the definitive choices on what you want to do, but also what you don't want to do, because you know that it will not give you those returns on whatever investments that you're making or resourcing it. Great. This is a very important.
And I was fortunate to be with Professor Nirmal Gupta for multiple sessions and for years together. Right. And that's one element which was ingrained. Like, right. There is nothing which is sexy about marketing. It's all about making those choices driven through numbers, driven through analytics.
Right.
We all see models walking on the ramp and believe that's marketing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the least of the things.
No, absolutely. It's all about number crunching, quantitative data estimation, doing the analytics, getting to the depth of the numbers. Only that gives you the real intended outcomes at the end of the day. Very well said. It's not the glamour or the glitz or the sexy piece, as you rightly said. Very true. Very true. Anjan, I want to now come to the big story, which kind of propelled everyone, into creating a classic textbook launch of huge success of Januvia, Janumet in MST. And I want to spend some time, where you were the director for business support and you were a part of the launch team to bring this outstanding brands to India. If you can tell our audience, the kind of role that you were, a mirror-facing role that you were playing with your team to marketing, what's the kind of clear metrics or definition of the role that you had to support the business team? Second, what were the various KPIs or deliverables that you had to ensure, not just in terms of strategy formulation, but execution, so as to get the right set of outcomes to make it successful? It would be really helpful for the marketeers and business heads who would, want to learn this from you. Because everybody talks about Januvia, but it's very...
Sure enough. Sure enough, a big brand today, right? Yes. It's possibly the second biggest brand in the market. Yes. Or amongst the top 5, if I can combine Januvia, Janumet.
Yes.
And certainly it's there in the top 2, 3.
Absolutely.
Janumet itself, I think, is number 3 and somewhere around there.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter about that position, but the quantum of business that it's generated over time. So it was a very, very challenging time, I would say. MSD itself had no equity in the marketplace as a player in diabetes. When you talk about diabetes, It was always Novos of the world, Lilly's of the world, and Sanofi's of the world, or Aventis of the world, I would put it that way. What made and constituted so-called thinking diabetes market, right? Those who really changed the orals and insulin game in that time. So coming into this market with no experience of, so the company didn't have a standing, neither had a legacy. And from Januvia, Janumet, there was nothing which was also in the pipeline to promise that we will stay in that. And now we can see they are moving out of it. Okay. Right. But then at that point in time, that was one part of the backdrop. The second backdrop that was there was a couple of recent molecules that got launched in the diabetes space. Didn't take off so well. It was, there was all those glinides which had come in, ripaglinides and then natiglinides. There was a bunch of diones which had come in, right? TZD, as we used to call that, thiazolidone diones.
Yeah, thiazolidone, TZD.
So pioglitazins and rasoglitazins. Doctors got apprehensive by using those new introduction molecules because they didn't fulfill their promises, either from efficacy or from safety perspectives. So they had fallen back still onto acarboses and sulfonylureas as a kind of choices. And in that backdrop, you are launching something which has never been experienced, right? SGLT2 inhibitors. DPP4 inhibitors. SGLT2 was my later part of the story in Vocana. Okay, so in that scenario, we had to penetrate the market. The pricing benchmark was somewhere around 3 rupees, 4 rupees a day kind of stuff for orals. I think the most costliest selling elements in regular management of diabetes was Lantus, which also didn't exceed about 30, 35 rupees for 10 units of 10 IUs of injection. That's the backdrop, and this company is coming in. Its company is forming new. So we did a lot of market research, trying to understand what the price point should be. What is an ideal price point for a drug which has got phenomenal efficacy, very low side effects, nearly zero chances of hypoglycemia, the biggest concern that a diabetic managing doctor has, more than the patient. The doctors fears hypoglycemia much more than the patients do, right? So all of that, at that backdrop, we did that. We found out a very, very nice price point, which was kind of 1/7 of that the global price was. But then at that point, the volumes were tremendous. That could offset a lot of fixed cost in terms of their productions, manufacturing cost, and all of that. The capacity utilization is factory. And we are talking about factories back there, right? But then that was a game changer, saying if this is the volume, how much cost can it absorb if I give it? So obviously price volume game got played. We got the pricing right. Right or not, we don't know. We got the pricing which market research said that was the right price. Then came, how do you cascade an innovation? So we had tried that doing in Lantus. We had tried that doing a bit in Amaryl. Can we better that? Can we make it more sharper? And came in a concept which was called communities of practice. It's a merger between a viral marketing and then diffusion of innovation kind of stuff, right? So you get innovators, you have a chasm, you get early adopters, and you get late majority early. So get that stuff correct. And with viral put together, that there are nodal points which can influence. So we did a great research trying to find out that what are the referral networks that's there in the marketplace when there's a crisis about managing diabetes. Who is the one I refer to as a doctor?
Right.
Once that got mapped, then it was left to the medico marketing. So this was the part which I drove completely. That look at this. This is the map that comes in. This is the pricing that comes in. And when you work in a team, it's a team. There is responsibilities, roles, but then they also keep changing within the team. And then you can give an example of soccer. Euro is going on. At a point in time, you can see the goalkeeper in the opposite penalty box trying to score, right? So the roles gets diffused when you're working as a real team trying to win a match. And so it all was building up together. So these were the insights that came in, that we need to have a diffusion cascade. How do you accelerate the diffusion cascade? In 1 month, we had planned some 450 odd small group meetings. Now plan it out on a calendar across the territories, 100 and odd territories that we had. That who comes in, who speaks, who is the audience, how is it conducted? And it's all then a physical mode. It was not digital as we see in this last 1.5 years. So having to organize the 450 physical meetings, ensuring the doctors come in, and therefore the COP became very, very critical. That, if I refer to Sailesh and Sailesh is calling me in, I need to come and be there. And it's a small 4 or 5 doctor group. And that's the mass which had the maximum prescriptions in new products. So looking at the prescription analytics, you can find out that when a product gets launched, where is this initial bunch of prescribers, which you can classify as innovators or early majority. Once that got mapped, it was all about execution then.
Right.
Execution was done to the T in planning, that you will have dates, you will have doctors who is going to present, you'll have numbers who are going to participate. So it was mapped by individuals and then followed up at that level. So that had to be reported back on a daily basis. So understand 450 meetings in a month would mean about 15 meetings a day.
Right.
Each had to be reported back.
Right.
And then there was a pre and post, which was in that meeting about a survey done. Collate the survey, find out the barriers, modify it for the next meeting. And this wave after wave went out for about 3-4 waves, which was about 8 months. That you collect back information. What are the barriers which is coming up, which needs better clarification or which needs substantiation in the next meeting? Design the medico marketing inputs at that in that fashion, go back and repeat it with the same set of doctors.
Same set of doctors.
Yes, you don't change that set.
Exactly.
So the measurements was this. Did the same doctor come back? Did he get the answers to what was there? So I collect back the survey format and ensure that the barriers have been clarified, and then track back whether they are started prescribing or not.
Right.
And that was self-reported, but that's good enough. You don't have to go through all external researches. So slowly we saw the adoption amongst this large mass of doctors. So about 3,000, 3,500 doctors started prescribing within 3 months of launch. So that was the penetration which was driven for this new product. And then rest is history.
Rest is history. So thanks, Anjan. I mean, what I gather or summarize for our viewers is that if you want to have an outstanding launch success for a innovative, novel, proprietary molecule, it does not mean that you're in a state of luxury. No, it still requires the meticulous planning followed by the detailed execution to the last T. And that detailed planning and execution gives the intended outcomes at the end of the day. So, I mean, what you have said so beautifully, Anjanda, is you ensured and you prepared the ground for a successful launch through very important variables as a support function. That is, first is market research. Whether it was a qualitative or a quantitative, but you needed to get the insights from the customers, from the markets, given the background of hesitancy and uncertainty, the cloud created by the previous era molecules. So you cannot just get into a market trying to launch without understanding the insights from the physicians. Why I'm raising this, Anjanda, is because when we see marketeers, it's not that it is just because there is no lack of resources to invest in research. It is also the need to understand that you need to do market research in the first place. And that's an important point you're making, because otherwise you're firing in the dark. You're just going there and trying to do something without even understanding the situation, what it is, right? And it's a setting up for failure rather than success. I think that's a very good point to make. Second important point, Anjan, that you mentioned is the pricing studies that you did. It's another very important message for the view, because pricing is a very strong strategic tool or a lever, as we know the 4 P's of marketing mix. I know you used to share with me so much often that, we did pricing sensitivity studies through various quantitative techniques, the Gabor-Granger, the conjoint analysis, and most of the people use the weighted average, 3 competitor brands, which really doesn't give you that level of the inflection point at which the volumes can take off. And that's what we have been trying to tell our clients as well, that you need to do pricing sensitivity analysis so that you know that at that particular price, the volumes take off, right? And that's the inverse relationship. That's so beautiful by you, Anjan. And I think that set it up, that you clearly knew what you were up against, what was the kind of price that you were asking from Global. The third important point, I think the strategic lever, which you said so beautifully, is the communities of practice, the COP, the nodal networks, right? Who is that key opinion leader or thought leader who is most referred to along his networks, who you tap into and then identify and drive down that cascade, which I think you have said beautifully is an amalgamation of both the viral marketing and the diffusion of innovation model. So it's a classic marketing, concept that has been put into practice. And in the pharma industry context. So very often we keep telling ourselves in our industry that we can't do the classic marketing, but we can. Don't you agree, Anjan?
Absolutely, we can. We can do everything.
Yes. So that's the message that is very clear that you're telling us, and that's what is the message for our viewers, that you can apply the fundamental classical marketing concepts on pricing, on preparing the market, and doing market development activities. Absolutely. And as you rightly said, but the second piece, what you said, Dada, was even more important, and that is the execution was rigorous. It was not left loosey-loosey, right? It was clearly monitored, and you said 450 meetings per month, which means 15 meetings a day. Everybody had to report it. Even if it was self-reported, but you lived with that reality, it may be 70-75% accurate, no problem. It is better than not having any data at all, right? So again, I think the emphasis to brand managers, it is not just doing this stylish stuff, but it's the real hard work, the quantitative metrics, the pricing study, the market research, preparing the market for the launch. And that's what we were discussing in our previous, interactions with our other esteemed speakers like you, is pre-marketing has been forgotten for a while now in our industry. Get back to pre-marketing era, right? Because you prepare the market. As you remember in Lantus, we used to say, when we go and launch Lantus to the doctor, the customer should not say, what is Lantus, but where is Lantus? I'm ready to write the brand. You're prepared, right? Now, this is very, very good, Anjan, and this is something which is very useful for you. Now, moving to your next step. Again,
put one piece of information there is that, there is a marketing need, right? So marketeers design what they want, and then they break it down to activity and start measuring activity without measuring the intent, why they are doing the activity.
Exactly.
If I don't get to the prescriber level, right, by doing this activity, how many prescriptions, what kind of patients, what is the dosage, what is the frequency? If that doesn't get measured, just measuring activity doesn't help.
Absolutely.
At the back of the mind for the marketeers, there is a marketing objective. It's not an activity objective. Activity is a vehicle to get to the marketing objective.
Yes. I think this is another important point. Activity is to drive your marketing objectives, right? Yes. And it's not that yeah, you don't measure activity. You measure the objectives through the defined metrics and see if they have achieved that. Absolutely. No, that's four very good takeaways from this
People
classical.
get lost in saying how many meetings have I done, how have I got, and got X number of doctors in that meeting. That's not an objective. That could be an objective for an F&B manager. The hotels and the agencies will do their targets, but you won't do your targets till you measure that.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. This is great. So, I mean, what you have been telling in the last about 35, 40 minutes, Anjan, is these are some of the home truths. They will never change. However fancy you get digital, you may get digitalization, you may do viral marketing, you may do, digital customer journey. But at the end of the day, these are the home truths of brand building, right? And I think these are the messages that we endeavor to, educate our audience of marketers in the industry, that the home truths can never be surrendered for the fancier, glimmy stuff, like the shiny stuff. This is the real stuff. And it's about quantitative estimation, quantitative segmentation, doing the right thing, setting your priorities right, defining your KPIs to measure objectives, not activities, and driving both the planning and the execution piece is extremely important. And I think it cannot come from a better person who's been there and done that in the sales role and as the commercial head role, and knowing the interface between marketing and sales. And that's very beautifully put by you. I want to ask you a question, Anjan, is how do you see the state of marketing in our industry today? Has it changed for the better, or is it for the worse, or what do you think it is? Is there scope for improvement? What's your current state? Because you have now worked for both MNCs and Indian organizations to some extent. The kind of people you see across the board are generally not too very different. But what's the state of marketing today in our industry? Just a few top level thoughts in terms of effectiveness, in terms of ability to create impact with customers. What are you happy with the way brands are getting built in our industry today? That's my question to you.
So let me put it the other way around.
Okay.
I think over a period of time, what I wanted have changed.
Okay.
As a result of which the yardsticks have changed possibly. I wouldn't say the other person, whether they were better or they were. My understanding at that point of time was so nascent that whatever came in looked great.
Okay.
And therefore, today when I reference it to what I get, maybe the others, the history always looks better. But even in history, there were some great marketeers and there were some not so great marketeers. Okay. Today also, there are some great marketeers and there are some not so great marketeers. So I won't paint it with one single brush saying it's yesteryears were very good and today is very bad. Nothing of that kind.
Okay.
Right? So even in history, we had seen horrible launches from so-called doyens of marketing companies had got no semblance to the market space. And so we were launching Pan Parag kind of tablets, right? Packets in pouches of 2 tablets. Instead of having a full dose of a, so I could tell you, Cotrimaxazole DS was a big tablet, right? 800 milligrams and 160 milligrams put together. So that became a kind of 1 gram veterinary tablet. So people had problems of swallowing and all of that. Solution came in like you put 2 tablets together in a Pan Parag pouch types of, that doesn't work, right? The solution has to be something more than that. Things of that nature came out. It was considered innovation, but flopped, tanked right away.
Right.
So I'm saying in those days, there were, so even today, there are some great marketing brains that are coming up. It's getting sharper as well because there are individuals who have picked up those learnings from those yesteryears. They go back and see what happened, how the markets evolved, how marketing evolved. And can we improve upon that? The tools have got better. So people who are using them, I have seen a couple of them doing a fantastic job today as well. So
great.
And today the numbers have swelled because number of organizations have swelled and every organization needs a marketing. So that there is a huge mass of people who call themselves pharma marketeers. So Earlier there was relatively low number. We had less competition. There was more time to be invested in a brand. All of that. Today we don't have those luxuries. They are working in a different environment, different set of competitive landscape. But even within this, I would say there is a set of people who are doing great job, and there's a large set of people who can do much better.
Much better. All right.
And the only one thing for them is be curious, try to find out why they are doing what they are doing. They have got so activity driven. Brand managers at one point of time was a gift manager. Then they became a CME organizer, and some became tour operators. I need to take 50 doctors from here to Dubai, from here to Finland, from here to. So I start coordinating with travel agencies, I start coordinating with hotels and all the other things. That was not brand management.
Absolutely.
So, and it is not their fault. The top of the organization became rotten. They believe this is the way to do business. Why should I blame that poor guy who has just passed out from an MBA college and entered with starry eyes to do pharma marketing, and then they are told, look, this is what it is all about. Who takes care of that? So marketeer by themselves would not have liked to do it. And there was something which was happening from the top, and they became a vehicle for conducting them. Whether everybody wanted to do what they did, possibly not. So all of this has to be put in context rather than saying that, look, no, that this marketing has gone bad and from good to bad and bad to worse. Earlier also there were gifting which used to happen, right? There were companies known for it. Used to give, a EMI kind of gifts. First give 6 dinner plate, then give 6 bowls, then give 6 spoons. Right. So there were organizations, big names. I won't name them here. But absolutely. That was there earlier, that is here now. But did the brand managers want to do it? No. Possibly some big names made them do it.
Made them. Yeah. No, I think it's a very fair point that you make. So that's why I wanted to hear it from you, because what's the kind of stated position? I mean, whether it's gone good or whether it's bad, because what we see, I mean, even from an external perspective now for the last 6 years, we see that there are islands of excellence. Those who are self-driven and who want to learn, keep pushing themselves to better and better at marketing function. And there are the others who would be happy in doing this set of tactical stuff, which they believe is one way to get into, do the marketing or the tactical stuff. So that's fine, that we live with that. But that's why the guys who are, good enough, they rise and take on higher responsibilities and roles. Tada, we come to the last piece of our interaction, and the last 1.5 years has been unprecedented for the industry in some form or other. And these words have been bandied about like crazy: new normal, unprecedented, whatever it is. Well, in our lifetime, we have not seen probably this kind of a pandemic which can shutter the industry to a large extent. But on one hand, it was, a major impact, but it was also seen as an opportunity for the industry to get force pushed into a long overdue kind of digitalization or digital transformation, in every form or touch point, whether it was the sales calls, the doctor visits, the brand marketing planning and the execution, everything. And as who was seen from the sales side and now from the business head side, and as the president of the business, what is your take on digital transformation in our pharma industry? In sense, is this something that is here to stay for a long time, because habits have been formed now over the last 15, 16 months? And when habits get formed, they're generally sustainable. Second, I want to pick your brains on, everyone talks about digital, everyone talks about phygital. What's your take on it? What's the kind of a model which will be go-to market, is what you must be also grappling on a day in, day out. What are your thoughts around this? I just want to hear, just your thoughts around this piece. Yeah.
See, the pharma marketing or any marketing is not beyond what human behaviors are, right?
Yeah.
And to me, human behaviors is a human being or a social animal. They want to meet. We have not yet got to that mode that it's okay not to meet. Even when we say this, it's like that tukavara types. It's good, right? We are chatting, we would have done the same thing sitting across a table, but then it's not all that. You don't get the same sense, same feeling. That's one part of the story. So people will crave to meet individuals in person. That doesn't go away till we are able to produce babies digitally, possibly. So that's on a lighter vein. That's the craving that will not go away. People have been seeing Switzerland over internet. Are they happy doing that? No. I've been seeing Goa over internet. That doesn't make me happy. Similarly, in this case, the interaction with an individual in terms of sitting in front will not go away. This will be there to stay. Second part of the story is that couple of things which usually has not happened or transformed digitally. And one part of that is a knowledge transmission. Over histories and periods of time, this has been a very physical piece. If there's a teacher-student relationship, today's students are bored doing this. They're not able to grasp. They're not able to learn looking at a monitor for hours, right? It has to be, and it teaches a lot of other behaviors as well, not only knowledge. And I believe pharma as an industry is a knowledge industry.
Yes.
And when it is a transmission of knowledge, when it has to be an interaction, it would demand a lot of physical stuff. Till medical education at the college universities level don't become physical, pharma don't become digital, pharma cannot become digital because it is an extension of that. Right? What we bring to table is an extension of what has happened in those universities and in those medicals. Having said that, there will be a part which will take over in form of a digital is what? It's a method, it's a medium of communication.
Medium channel.
Right. It's not the content. It's a medium. There is a individual who comes and delivers that. And that's the best form because that's the most customizable form of communication. I can understand the other person's attitudes, behaviors. We had those segmentation as to what is that person like, and therefore appropriately tailor make your communication and convey that. Digital doesn't allow me all of that. And half the time I'll switch off the Zoom, I'll not do that. It doesn't attract. And then there is enough and more amount of resistance or that has happened with these digital pieces. We internally are always saying that, look, when do the office start? These meetings are not efficient anymore. It's happening, but they're not efficient. They're not effective. I have to repeat. So it will become a blend. But when there will be a serious need, people will move into the physical mode as well. And there will be a lot of that. I don't believe this is going to move completely or even majorly to digital interactions. Go to market for this industry for a very long time will continue to be hunched or hinged on physical. And if it had to go digital, I think US would have gone years ahead into that. They didn't go it, or other countries would have moved there. Some industries have already moved to digital, right? Airlines ticketing could move there. 80%, 90% to that. But pharma sales couldn't. Not that they didn't try. But then this selling is so different than an airline ticket selling. This selling is so different than creating a online supermarket. Right? When it came to buying a house, people didn't buy it online. So there will be industries which will move in that. There will be some industries which will have their own limitations or a different way of selling. I won't call it a limitation also. There will be variances between the way people consume information, people want to consume information for various categories of items. So that's how I look at digital coming into play in our industry.
So what you're essentially saying is it will not overnight replace completely the physical form, because we are a human face-to-face interaction-driven industry where the physician will always want to see the rep in person and the rep would always want to interact in a physical form, right? So it could be a blend, but it will not probably completely eliminate or take over. That's one point your assessment is. Second, the fact of the matter is that in certain areas where the digital touch points would be necessary and the customer is comfortable doing that, he will opt for it. And accordingly, the organization have to build those channels of communication as compared to the physical form, right? In terms of consuming.
To add on, when we talk about the industry and all of that, and we are talking only of this interface between a rep and then a doctor. The pharma industry can go digital in the rest of the other part of it, right? From manufacturing, procurement, production, finance, whichever is those elements. The industry is not only this piece, the industry is the whole. So when pharma industry going digital, you say, those parts, yes. Like reporting has gone digital. Expense management have gone digital. There's no problems to that. But can this piece go digital completely? Possibly no.
Possibly. Great. Anjan, it's been really wonderful talking to you for the last 45, 50 minutes. Thanks so much for your time. And as I always was looking forward to a lot of insights and thoughts, and leader pointers for our, bunch of marketeers who would gain immensely. I think that objective to a large extent has been fulfilled because you have given us some lead pointers on your perspectives on commercial excellence, marketing, brand building, and what marketing is really about, classical marketing. Thanks so much for your time. Before we sign off, do you have any closing messages for our audience who primarily comprises of young budding product managers, marketing heads, business leaders who would watch? So any closing messages or pieces, advice or whatever you may call it, because
my
it's essential.
only submission to them or request would be that be curious. Try and understand that what you're thinking is validated by a large set of information, understanding and insights that you can generate, and then translate that into what you want and measure it. Don't forget the piece of measurement, because that's where it all will be.
Absolutely.
Most of the marketeers forget the piece of measurement and they get sucked up in activities. Don't get sucked up there.
Right.
Keep true to your objective and measure that objective. There is a path in between. Don't get sucked up and play within this.
Right. Any other thing, Anjan, or is that it?
I think that's it.
That's it.
Thank you very much, Tanesh, for.
Thank you very much, Anjan, and thank you so much for your time. And we really appreciate you being with us today. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.
Stay safe and